And I think obviously artists fought back, and I think this was also the time when you had the Hudud Ordinance.
That's right.
So the women artists came out and along with the writers and poets protested against the Hudud Ordinance, and so we had the feminist art emerge at that time, which has continued to this day. So we see a lot of trajectories that are emerging out of this first Islamization drive. And now when we look at the fundamentalist kind of leanings,
Culture,
we see in some areas they're entrenched. Like if you still look at the state-run galleries.
Oh, I see that way. Okay.
I think there is definitely more,
Probably.
let's say, more patronage to arts that are generally
calligraphic
acceptable,
arts,
let's say.
the flowers and the leaves and that sort of thing.
Well, a little more than
Yeah.
that, more like landscape and calligraphy. And figurative art is definitely not something that they like, although the artists have not sort of let them keep them behind. They're doing the kind of art they prefer, the kind of art that speaks of
They
the time.
haven't allowed it to really
Absolutely,
suppress
the conflict
their spirit,
that they experience in their lives is out there in the art. So I think this dichotomy does exist.
This is Pakistan's brand. I mean, Niilofer's right. We have our own brand stamp of fundamentalism that we're dealing with here. But India has its own. You have various other sort of fomenting troubles. And how has that influenced your art scene?
Well, just taking over from what Niilofer said, that figurative was suppressed here. Interestingly, in an absolute contrast, figurative was and has been and still is, despite the popularity of abstract art, but this figurative art is most in demand still in India. So that completely flourished and saw a great market for the buyers.
Hasn't influenced
I mean, the struggle in India, I would say, has not been in expressing what you want to paint, but more of establishing art as a serious profession and finding a marketplace and a demand for buyers.
Making it a way of life.
Expression has never been a problem in India. Artists have gone ahead and done whatever they have to. But I know what you'd have in mind right now is the MF Hussain controversy.
I was going to say,
absolutely, and the right-wing activism that's going on there. But that's recent. They belong to political parties. There's a clear-cut agenda on why they're doing that. If you realize that a lot of MF Hussain paintings that they're protesting against were made in the 60s and the 70s. They've been lying around in public places. There have been no protests. Suddenly in 2003 or the late 1990s onwards, you see this entire row of protests and death threats and court cases. So there's clearly a political agenda behind that. That's the only activism, right-wing activism and protest against art, expression of a certain kind of art that India has seen, but otherwise largely it's been a democratic country, so everything's stable. Expression has been easy.
But you also saw that protest in Gujarat when the art school,
but
the
Gujarat,
degree show,
again, the state of Gujarat is run by a government that supports right-wing activism. It's a BJP government there.
But that is what I think we're talking about, the whole fundamentalism, that they are able to make a nuisance of themselves. By sort of
they're trying to
they're like trying suppress,
to
I'm sorry, I'm being very brash, but I am actually going to say I think they try and throttle people and their creativity.
They do, but I think the artists are one community, like poets who are going to always fight back.
Absolutely.
But the fact is that it has never happened before. Because you've always had, I mean, if you look at temple sculpture, it's always been there, temple
it's
paintings.
It's always been there, absolutely.
So,
it's as
why
expressive
this
as it gets.
new kind of
power.
Backlash, let's say.
They're fresh parties, they have their agenda, they get a lot of media attention. I think the entire the booming of the media industry, any media attention that they get just
is better
kind
than
of,
none.
it kind of encourages
that
them
must be what it is then,
encourages them to do more. I mean, just encourages them to push their agenda and further
it's like a 2-year-old. You go no and they go yes.
Attention seeking. You get the attention, they just do it more.
And probably also to attract other groups that are equally orthodox.
That hasn't happened at the moment.
This fundamentalism that we're talking about, as I said, this is global, all right? It's manifesting itself in many different ways. Yes, we've got the BJP on. We've got everybody's got their own
brand.
I wanted to use another word, but I suspect the show will never get aired if I do, so I'll leave it unsaid. But I'll let the audience and imaginations run amok. Why not? Let's push the boat out. Censorship. Now, these are political movements, right, which have influenced art. Political movements then morph and generate into censorship boards and sort of committees, if you like, and art in all its forms, not just the painted, the paints and the acrylic and the sculptures.
Right.
Then it becomes the films and the TV shows and the photography and the sculptures and the bowls and the urns, and everything that you want to display publicly suddenly comes under scrutiny. How tight, if you like, are the censorship rules in either country?
In Pakistan, we really don't have a written censorship policy on art at all, or culture for that. What it comes under is something which is vulgar. Now, that is a very wide kind of term. And when they want to sort of get to you, they use that stipulation that it's vulgar. It's not palatable to the masses. So now, when you look at the cinema hoardings in, let's say, somewhere like Peshawar or in Punjab or you know, the smaller towns, they're obnoxious, absolutely. They're vulgar, but they're up there. But when you create an art which is, you know, like an academic nude or
That's
you know,
offensive.
you want to express,
That's
you know,
offensive.
then these you know, a lot of the orthodox groups come out and say that, you know, it's offensive. But my experience has been very interesting. You know, we had this Takhti exhibition at the Frere Hall, which, as you know, is a very public space.
Yes, it is.
And we had a nude by Colin David.
Okay.
And nobody, and we had thousands of people visit that exhibition, nobody protested
No
against
one raised
this.
an eyebrow.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
It was done in good taste. In fact, there were a few other nudes in that exhibition as well, but Colin David's was a very frontal kind of nude.
Yeah.
Nobody protested. So I always feel that was the litmus test as far as I'm concerned. You had people from all walks of life come there. So it's all about agenda, really.
Yeah, there is no censorship board for all forms of art except Bollywood cinema, except movies coming out from the Indian film industry. So you're free to do whatever photography, whatever art,
Express
sculpture,
yourself, yeah.
theatre. You're free to do that. I mean, there have been a whole lot of nudes and figurative art that's been existing in India, and F. and Sousa, for goodness sake, that's as vulgar as it gets, for as many people would put it that way. But there hasn't been a censorship board that has been put across by the government saying that you're not allowed to show a frontal nude, you're not allowed to show Hindu gods and goddesses in a certain position or in a certain manner. So there's no such law in the book that says that in India.
It's interesting just to hear the sort of different viewpoints on this. All right, I know we're coming to the close of our time. Sarah, I'm going to ask you the last question before we go. Number one, how long have you been in Pakistan? This is your first trip? Your first visit?
No, I have family here in Karachi.
Okay.
I keep coming here almost every year.
Oh, well, this is all old hat to you then. I can't ask you how do you feel about being first time in Pakistan.
I still feel great being in Pakistan each time, whether it's the first time or the nth time.
And
I
what do you
love
say?
it.
And what do you say about our art scene? I mean, how do you like it, dislike it? What do you see?
I love it. It's pulsating. It's a rage in India. Pakistani art is a rage in India,
Interesting.
particularly the fresh new miniature
But
style
why?
of art that's coming in from NCA. I think what's a rage there is the miniature art that's coming in there, because it's such a fresh look at miniature
Music
art.
too, I would imagine.
It's Pakistani pop, absolutely. A few pop singers, very popular there.
Strings particularly.
Yeah, strings and Atif. But
There must be some kind of like interconnection there somewhere. You know?
yeah, you just instantly jump to it and say, hey, this is so fresh. It's from our neighbors, but it's still fresh, and we can still relate to it. It's fresh, but you can still relate to it because we're so close, we're neighbors. I think that's the click, that it's fresh, but you can still relate to it.
That's a nice high note to end on. Well,
Yes.
thank you, ladies. I enjoyed that. And always a pleasure. Please come back.
Thank you, Amina, for having
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you so much, Amina.
Yeah.
Pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you. We've come to the end of the show. Run out of time. But you know, what do? These things happen. We managed to talk about India and Pakistan throughout this show today. And we did it in a positive light. And we showed you all the wonderful things going on in the art scene on both sides. Well, I hope, and we hope at the TFB that you've enjoyed the show. We'd like your feedback. And you know, we read your emails. So don't forget to write to us at thefirstblast@dawnnews.tv. I'm Amina, and we'll see you tomorrow.